A lot of JDM cars in today's world are appreciating in value or holding their value very well, and I wanted to discuss this in today's video where I make weekly car content. The reason for this is a lot of these cars haven't had an adaptation or an involvement on the next car other than the MR2, and I think that makes these cars potential future classics. So let's jump into today's video with myself, Cars with Ben. For my first choice of car I have gone with today is the Honda CRX. Now the Honda CRX is a car that I did not like at first. I just didn't like the way it looked. It looked awkward, but over time I really grew to love it. And this car has a potential to be a future classic and has been rising in value quite considerably over the last few years. Now, this car was released in 1998 and made all the way to 1991, so not very long at all, and had a very short production life, and very few, if at all any, came to the UK because they were just so rare to see. And for that reason, this car is now very popular with JDM enthusiasts, as you can see here, with a price tag of up to 35k for a very stock one. Now, I think that is a very expensive amount, but some I have seen up to 10k, and I think this car that you wouldn't expect maybe 20 years ago is now holding its value very well. I just really like the way it looks when it's modified, especially with the custom wheels, and the fact that it's kind of got a very sharp back end that just drops off, and it's just different from anything else. Now, the reason I believe this will be a future classic is because they never made an adaptation. They never made a next generation, and this is why I put this car on the list. Now, it came with a pretty standard interior, nothing too unusual here, very typical Honda interior, and it was just a typical two-seater with a few seats in the back if you could pop people in. Now, for me, it didn't really spell sports car, but it did have an awesome 1.5 litre engine that actually produced quite a lot of power in that VTEC when you had it modified, and the different specs that it came in. This car came in different colours as well, and it just really popped, especially in the US and Japan when it released, so definitely a car to watch out for. At number 2, we have the second generation MR2. Now, to be fair, the MR2 is the odd one out on this list because they have made a Mark 1 and a Mark 3. But the Mark 2 here is the one I want to focus on because I believe this could be a future classic and is potentially holding its value quite well right now. Now, this is probably the cheapest car you can buy on this list at around £4,000 to £5,000 in the UK. I have seen US prices go up to $15,000, which is crazy. There's such a massive gap, so maybe you have less of them in the US. But for me, this one is a car that I really like due to its pop-up headlights and the fact it was produced for over 10 years, so it had quite a lot of cars that came out in that time, probably why it's the cheapest. All of them came with a 2 to 2.2 litre engine, giving it some good power, and I really quite like these. You know, you can find one of these for $6,500 roughly if it's a good one. Obviously, the worst ones tend to be a little bit less rusty, more rusty, and very hard to come by in a good condition. Now, what's also great about the MR2 in the second generation is it is a car that has been modelled time and time again over replicas, typically with Ferraris, and people love to use them just because they're mid-engine. Now, you can see how awesome that mid-engine is because they're still able to fit a boot in the back. So it gave it a lot of space and a lot of adaptability to just change and make it into something of your own. If you didn't want an MR2, you wanted to make it a Ferrari or a Lamborghini, something that you could replicate off. Now, I was never a fan of this. I actually like the MR2 as it is, and it's an awesome car. At number 3, we have the Nissan 300ZX or the 300. Now, this is a car I really like because it is so unique in the UK, and pretty much all were imported for the most part. The Nissan 300ZX is a sports car that comes from the, of course, you've guessed it, Z family, and it was produced across 2 similar unique generations. What I really like about this is it is a proper Japanese sports car, and I have to love a car from the Z. It came with a 2 litre turbo or V6 turbo, and for that gave it quite a lot of grunt, but it was a heavy car weighing at nearly 3 tons. So that was a bit of an issue when it came to sports and performance of the car, but still you can even see from the body how big it is. It was a very popular car in America, and you can just see from that engine how packed in it is and how much power it came with, although it didn't really feel like it at the time. Now, customized models of these are pretty awesome. As you can see there, some are just over £7,000 and some are starting to rise in value up to £12,000 that I've seen. It's just a very unique interior, and another car I believe will be a future JDM classic, rising in value as we speak today, and you just don't see very many of them in the UK, which is a shame. That interior is fantastic, and it is very much a sports car because it does come with that sort of roadster look as well if you remove the roof, which is pretty cool, I think, as a top-off extra for the car. At number 3, we have the Suzuki Cappuccino. The Suzuki Cappuccino is a car you probably never have heard of, and that is because it is a car that Suzuki made very rarely making their sports cars. It's actually a K car, so K car really means it just meets specifications for lower tax and insurance in Japan. But what makes this car really awesome is that it really is rare. Only a couple of thousand came to the UK, and most of them were really sold in Japan. And it's really a shame because we don't see very many of them at all, unless you went to maybe Japfest or you went to a specific Japanese meet. Then you might have a chance of seeing one. The production years for these were 1991 to 1998, and I think this car is really, really cool. I really like it, and if you see a modified one, it's a very special thing. Prices for these right now aren't too bad at around 6 to 7k, some of them going up to 10k, and I think that's pretty much a bargain. If you were to buy one of these right now, I genuinely believe it would raise its value in at least 10 years' time, just because this is something that we haven't seen very often in this country for such a small car, and it's cheap to run, which is another awesome purchase, and it's reliable because it's a Suzuki. As we know, Suzuki make a lot of awesome cars and bikes. So, especially this UK spec version, I really like. It's very simple, and it has a very, very fresh interior for the 90s. Nothing too complicated, and that's what I like in my interiors. Very simple, very similar to the MX-5 or the MR2 if you have one of those as well. The Suzuki also came with a very small engine, and it made it very, very slow, but that's okay because it was a small car. At number 5, and my final car on this list, is a car we've all heard of before. It is the Honda S2000. Now, the reason I put this on this list is because a Honda S2000 never made an extra or adaptation of the car. Now, there has been talks of it, but until now, this is why it's been holding its value very well. I have been looking at these for several years, several on and off, and they've just been holding the value quite well over that time. Now, these cars in the UK are ranging from anywhere from £10,000 to £20,000, which is a lot, and probably more in the US. But I think that is because it's so iconic, it looks great, it's a two-door sports car, and it's kind of a one-up from the MX-5. The production years for these were 1999 to 2009, so another 10-year lifespan, and as you can see here, £16,000. Coming in with the engine, you've got an incredible VTEC, and a lot of people claim this to be one of the great engines, the way it's mounted, and the fact it makes such an amazing sound. Now, I have seen and heard one of these plenty of times. They're very common in the UK, in fact, and I'm sure across the world. So it's not necessarily a rare car, but it's just a car that everyone appreciates. I particularly love the interior and the way that dashboard is digital, so it revs up all the way, unlike a normal dashboard, because it can't keep up with the revs, according to what Honda said and the forums of all of the reviews at the time. Here it is, another view of it, and it is all digital, and at the time, in 1999, this was actually pretty cool, and I think it was that era that we were going into with the digital age. Again, a car I really, really like, and I believe it will rocket in value, or typically hold its value, which we've already seen happen over the last year or so. So, watch this space for these cars, because I genuinely believe they are really awesome. Now, I definitely want to get a Honda myself, as I'm an MX-5 man, and I'd like to upgrade to the S2000, as I feel like it would be a good conversion. And it's only got a 2-litre engine, so the insurance and tax isn't too bad unless you opt for the £600 tax version. Anyway, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this video from Cars with Ben. I have really enjoyed making this video. Let me know if I've missed any cars that you think might be potential JDM risers of appreciation. If not, I will see you guys in the next video. Don't forget to leave a like and comment down below that you have done so I know who's subscribed. I'll see you in the next one.